All right, welcome into the B Block Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Scott. I appreciate you for joining me. Assuming if you're here right now, you're probably already subscribed. But if you are not for some reason, subscribe to the B Block Podcast on YouTube. You can also listen to us wherever it is that you get your podcast. I appreciate y'all again for being here. And look, we're going to talk about the Texans-Steelers matchup. Man, we finally here. Can we just get hyped for a second about finally being here? That's the one thing about not having that Saturday afternoon game, that first game on Saturday, and having the Monday night game of all games, like not getting kind of like stuck in the shuffle somewhere, but getting the very last game, is that you got to do all of this waiting at the end or waiting until the end. And so I've been a little anxious for a few days now, I guess probably starting on Saturday. And now that we're into Monday, I cannot wait for this game on Monday night. I can't wait for the matchup. I want to talk about it with y'all. Honestly, there's a lot that we've already discussed and gone over that y'all can revisit in the time leading up to the game, between the conversation I had with Reginald Atatula from Sports Radio 610. Also Seth Payne, we did a live. And shout out to everybody that joined and was a part of that. But since we did all of that, we have had football. We have had the wild card weekend. And it was exciting, man. I want to kind of go over it a little bit before we actually talk a little bit more about this game and really what I think it all comes down to, or at least what it comes down to for me. But how about the weekend to start off? How about the weekend? Every game until the last one. Y'all tell me if y'all agree or disagree. But every game until the last one, I thought was worthwhile, was a lot of fun, had fireworks. It was pretty much everything that you could ask for. And look, I'm really hoping that aside from the Texans winning tonight, and I really don't care how they win, but I am hoping that they kind of live up to the standard that has been set throughout the weekend, if y'all know what I mean. Like, if y'all have watched these games, everyone has had like a playoff feel, has had playoff moments until we got to that last one. We'll talk about each and every one of them here. But I just hope that this one has that, and I expect it to. I don't have any reason to believe that it won't. It's going to be a different style game than some of the ones that we've seen, and I think we talked about that. I think we all understand the type of team that the Texans are, type of team that the Steelers are, that this is going to be a different, at least we expect it to be a different type of game. There could be fireworks. They got the quarterbacks in this game that could make the plays to make this kind of similar to some of the other games that we've seen. But it's just been a really, really good weekend, a really good wild card weekend. We can start with the first game, the Rams-Panthers game, which, look, I got a lot of stuff wrong about this weekend. I thought this game was going to be crap. I thought that you could just basically bank on the Rams to kind of blow the Panthers out. I didn't think the Panthers were a worthy playoff team, and that this would be relatively easy for Matthew Stafford and the Rams. And I was wrong about that. I was wrong about that. The Panthers made a game of this. They made a go of it. And look, I gotta give them credit. I gotta give them credit. Now, the story of the game was Matthew Stafford having an MVP-like moment. Like the game itself was an MVP-like moment. Matthew Stafford winning this game on the road with a sprained finger and against a Carolina defense that seemed to have his number. It seemed to have his number for a good portion of the game. I thought it was an incredible feat by Matthew Stafford. He was good really early, struggled. I thought the Carolina defense made things difficult on Stafford and on the offense and Sean McVay. I thought through the majority of this game, the middle portions of this game, Stafford started off something like 8 for 8, and then there was a rough stretch there for the bulk of this game, and then they make things happen there at the end. The throw to the tight end and the toe tap, I thought was special. I thought that was a special way to end the game. But again, the Panthers seemed like they had Stafford and his offense's number for a good portion of the game. That secondary, and we talked about this in the loop last week, but that secondary was legit. Got to give Reggie credit because he tried to tell us this is one they've beaten them already, and this is one where they've shown that they can make it rough on Stafford, and he definitely did that. But Stafford looked like an MVP in this game, especially to start it and especially to end it. Now, with that, I also thought a big story of the game was Bryce Young and him being valid. Like I don't want to pretend to be tapped in to the conversation on Young's potential contract extension, but I'd imagine that there is at least a debate about whether the Panthers should sign him to an extension. And after watching that game, I think it was a good reminder of why you drafted him number one overall and why you would give him the keys to your franchise. And if I was a Panthers fan, I'd be in full support of signing Bryce Young to an extension and trying to build around him. You got this Jalen Coker kid who's a stud. You got Teteroy McMillan, who is a stud. I think they really got something going out there at Carolina, despite the fact that I just said and still believe that they were not, to me, a worthwhile playoff team, having backed their way into it. So, and I think we should reiterate too how good the Panthers secondary is. Right, the incredible game by Mike Jackson, who I thought Mike Jackson, the other corner for the Panthers, I thought he was maybe I thought he was one of the more impressive players of the entire weekend on any team at any position. You had Isaiah Simmons out there, an Isaiah Simmons sighting, former first round pick with the Cardinals, who's bounced around the league a bit, comes up with a huge block punt. I mean, I was truly happy for Carolina watching that game. And look, it's a team again that backed into the playoffs and who no one really felt like belonged. Not just me, but I don't feel like most people outside of Carolina felt like they belong in the playoffs the way that they got in there. But they actually showed that they did. They did 100%. See what we got in here. Shout out to Brandon calls them Chokesonville Jaguars. Hey, we're gonna get to them. Don't worry. We're gonna get to them in a second. Brandon says that the Rams defense is weird. It either holds teams to single digits or gives up 30 plus each time. No in between. That's a good point. Like they're good. They're really, really good up front, but wildly inconsistent. It's a good point. Actually, the none of my takeaways really included much of the Rams defense. I kind of just fixated on Bryce Young and the potential there for Carolina. Like again, that secondary and then offensively, what they can develop into maybe in another year of that system or yeah, point blank, I would just pay Bryce Young and keep trying to figure it out. Shelton asks, how does it feel to know that we'll be hosting the AFC Championship game against Buffalo? Oh, interesting. Interesting. I like it. I like it. I actually had not gone that far with it, but I like it. I like where you're at. I'm so focused on the Texans road, but I had not actually thank you for this. Thank you for this, Shelton. I appreciate it because I had not actually thought about whether I'm picking Buffalo to beat the Broncos at Denver, but I might. I like where your head is at. Let's get back to that. We'll get back to that. I like that idea. I like that thought. That is good. That is good. I don't know why I did not go that extra step, but I appreciate that. Look, the Bears beating the Packers. Okay, I want to kind of get through these games before I talk Texans in a second. Get some people time to get in here as well. Let people know, by the way. Subscribe, share, tell people all of that. I've been on social media calling it the best podcast that nobody knows about, which hopefully people don't who have podcasts that people know about don't take that offensive and understand that that's a backhanded compliment to me and the podcast. That calling it the one that nobody knows about, just something that I like to say that I can't really prove or disprove, but sounds pretty good. But anyway, Bears Packers. All right, so I thought this was a classic wild card game. I don't know what y'all thought. And maybe it's that I got a little bit of ties to the Chicago area with my dad being from Gary and being a Chicago sports fan. But I thought this was an incredible game. Um, Bears Packers, and like the Bears winning the game. I can't even. I'm not going to pretend like I remember who I picked to win the game, but the Bears winning it. Like maybe this won't be a classic to those of us who aren't super connected to it. Okay, but I could sense it just from, again, my dad's tied to the Chicago area, and us at Odyssey, Sports Radio 610, Odyssey having 670 to score, being one of the better and more well-known stations in our company and in our industry at that. So I got a little bit of understanding for like just the angst out there, not having a quarterback. They haven't had a quarterback worth a damn since I've been alive. Um, other than I guess like Jay Cutler, they went to the Super Bowl, Rex Grossman, but they haven't had a good quarterback as good as Caleb Williams ever, maybe. But certainly since I can remember. At least what the potential is, what the highs are with that guy. I don't think they've had anything like it. So this was a seminal moment, I thought, for Bears fans who I think the season has been successful enough for them to be convinced by Caleb Williams. But you have playoff success. You do it in front of the crowd like that against the rival, against the hated Packers. There's not a team that they hate more. It is a blood rivalry of sorts. I just, because of the distance between the, Wisconsin and Chicago. Look, this was big. And then on the other side, for Green Bay, of course, it could mark a turning point for the Packers franchise. I'm still refreshing. Y'all let me know if y'all seen something. But did that just end Matt LaFleur? Did Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, and the Bears just end Matt LaFleur in Green Bay? That has been the conversation ever since the game ended. He's going into a lame duck season, and that was the kind of I would say the kind of performance that could get you fired, even if you're coming off of an extension, much less going into a lame duck season. So in this case, he's trying to get an extension. They got a new general manager. Do they give him the extension? Do they fire him? Do they ask him to coach on a lame duck season? Does he do that if they do? Or does he just say, nah, I'm good, and then bounce? I'd imagine he would be in high demand with all of the coaching openings, all the head coaching positions that are open right now. I'd imagine he could get a job. I don't know. And I'm sure this is something that they are talking about right now as we speak, if they have not already decided it. So I'm fascinated by that. Did Caleb Williams and the Bears end Matt LaFleur and that run with the Packers? Because obviously if they win this game, the season is still going. And we're pausing all of these conversations. Pausing them, if they're being had at all. And he's probably going to get an extension at that point, right? If you win a playoff game on the road, right? You beat the division rival on the road in a wild card game. To me, that bodes well in your favor if you're Matt LaFleur. So, and I think that goes without saying. So it was a huge game for blood rivals, I thought. And entertaining as well. Like, I mean, come on, Caleb Williams in that fourth down throw, some of the throws that he made in the second half. And that's the wild. I was talking to somebody about this, man. This is the wild part about the experience with him, man, is that like it's weird that the highs and lows that you have with this guy, but the highs are just so damn high that you just got to be along for the ride. It'd be crazy not to be. There were some very inappropriate jokes that I don't think I'm comfortable enough to share on the podcast that I did laugh at after they won this game. But the point really being kind of like going back to a theme here is that both quarterbacks I thought were phenomenal at times in this game. Like Jordan Love's numbers speak for themselves: 4 touchdowns, no picks, 323 yards on 24 46. I mean, I think those numbers speak for themselves. Like he had an objectively good game, obviously not good enough to win it. Caleb Williams was a lot more up and down and a lot of down early, but I mean, he was clearly sensational at the end. which again has kind of been what he does in the story of their season. It's like with Caleb Williams, the easier it is, the worse he is. And the more difficult it is, the better he is. That's how it seems. And it's a weird dynamic, but the young man is a star. Behold, young man's a star. So we had that. What did my man say earlier about Chokesonville gag wars? All right, we can talk about it. We can talk about the Bills. Look, I'll just say this because this was cool. Bills Jags was cool because I just love watching the Jags lose. I just love watching the Jaguars lose. I can't even lie about it. I don't like them. Just healthy sports hate. Don't like them. Love watching them lose. I'm basically Ben Johnson in his opening press conference taking shots at Matt LaFleur, which was another funny part and anecdote in this game was the handshake at the end. I know y'all saw that. Him kind of give him that. Whenever I see that, it makes me understand Jim Schwartz just a little bit better. Who was the coach that did this with him? One of the Harbaughs? Was it Jim Harbaugh and Jim Schwartz back in the day? But anyway, I can't even lie about it. I don't like them. Healthy sports hate. Josh Allen looked like an MVP. A couple of rushing touchdowns, including the one to win the game. Threw for one. Um, Caught Dalton Kincaid for a touchdown. Seemed like 100 different guys caught passes from Josh Allen. It didn't matter who it was. Brandon Cooks. We had a Brandon Cooks sighting. He was out there reminding people. Brandon Cooks was out there this weekend reminding people how nice he really is with it. Like, and I know a lot of Texans fans hate to hear it because of how he left, and it wasn't a great feeling. But Brandon Cooks, he was out there reminding people. I think he is one of the more underrated players of his time, right? Because he doesn't get accolades. I don't know if he's ever been to a Pro Bowl. Certainly, I don't think he's been an All Pro. None of that. But dude stays solid. He's fast, runs great routes, catches the ball, tough for his size, especially for his size. I mean, the guy is just an excellent football player. Like him or not, Texans fans, it's the truth. It is the truth. And those are the things that really stood out to me about that game. Not even so much anything specific about Jacksonville's failures, except the Trevor Lawrence pick at the end. I thought otherwise that they were, a relatively fairly impressive team, but enjoyed watching them lose and always will. So much for that. Hey, so much for that AFC South championship and what that does for you. You can't even win a home playoff game. So if y'all can't tell, I'm not coming with the same energy as what's my good sister's name from the Jacksonville Free Press, the associate editor there, Lynn Jones Turpin. Shout out to her for being a positive person in a world that lacks positivity. But I can't lie, I ain't got it. I ain't got it for the Jags. To hell with them. The world needs more people like her because I ain't one of them. Just to be real with it. The Saquon Bowl, the McCaffrey Saquon Bowl. I don't know why I called it the Saquon Bowl when I'm clearly about to tell y'all that Christian McCaffrey won it. And not only won it, of course, his team won the game. But this turned into the McCaffrey Saquon Bowl for me right before it started because it just kind of hit me. Both of these teams have like a lot going on. They're big market teams, big brands, fun to talk about. And so for whatever reason, I did not do the McCaffrey Saquon calculation until right before the game. Right before the game. Just being honest with y'all, right before the game. And I went 1 for 2 on Sunday. I picked all the home teams to win and cover the spread. Was wrong about that. But this one ended up coming down to me being more about the McCaffrey versus Saquon thing. And Saquon ended up having the better counting stats, but McCaffrey actually got in the end zone twice, and the Niners won the game. And look, I know I have really dumb conversations about these two teams, but y'all just indulge me for a second. Like, aside from winning the game, aside from the playoff implications themselves, okay, these are the conversations I'm having in my head watching this game. Who would you rather have? I'm reminding y'all, mind you, I picked the Eagles to win this game. But right before the game started, I kind of started thinking about some real simple shit. And that was, who would you rather have? I did some would you rathers. The good old classic would you rather, tried and true. And I'm like, would you rather have Brock Purdy or Jalen Hurts? Would you rather have Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley? And again, this is not something that I asked until right before the game started, right after I told the world that I was picking the Eagles. But I almost started second guessing it, I would say, like immediately. Because I was drinking the Kool-Aid of the Eagles Super Bowl run last year, the Niners' more recent playoff letdowns, and I probably would have picked the home team for either of these. Like, I probably would have just given the advantage to the home team. But then, especially Philly in this case, the weather and all of that, being outside in the weather and all that. But like, I thought about it, and when I really thought about it, almost right before the game was starting, and I'm like, I'd rather have San Francisco's head coach and play caller, which in Philly is a different person, but I'd take Kyle Shanahan over Nick Sirianni and or Petula, the guy that's been calling the plays for Philly, who I don't expect to stay around based off of how things went for them offensively this year. But I'd rather have that guy, Kyle Shanahan, over either one of the two guys that are doing that job over there for Philly. I would rather have their quarterback and then the future Hall of Fame running back head to head between Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley. I think that one goes to the Niners as well. And I'd rather have McCaffrey. And again, winning the game comes down to a lot more than that. Those teams are about a lot more than that. But those were the things that I fixated on. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna get to this in a second, but Nate mentions that this was a tough week for the Justin Herbert truthers. She mentions that because I am one of them. Yeah, not a great week. As much as I love to see Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars fail, the Justin Herbert looking funny in the light part is not is not reflecting well on me as a Justin Herbert truther. Not a good night at all for Justin Herbert truthers. And we can get to that. The Chargers Patriots game was the one, like, didn't have to watch this game. It was the one snooze fest out of all of these games. And so, again, I'm hoping that the Texans-Steelers game is nothing like that. I'm hoping that it's more like the other games that we talked about and the other games that we watched, and not like this one. And I'm not going to even pretend like I got even a whole lot on it, because it was that rough of other than Tanae's point, the Justin Herbert thing, funny in the light. But the Patriots defense is really good, and I knew that, like I knew that the Patriots defense was really good, even if the corners are the only guys on the team, or on the defense at least, that I even know. Right? They got Christian Gonzalez, and look, Robert Spillane, who used to be with the Steelers, is over there. But my point is, they don't have all pros on the defense. They don't have a lot of household names on their defense. They don't have a Will Anderson Jr. or Derek Stingley, as good as Christian Gonzalez is. Or they certainly don't have like that combination of, you know, Texans got 3 All Pros on their defense. Patriots have none, but they looked really, really good. You know, they don't have guys that like you just have to know, unless you're up there following the team closely. But they're incredible, man. Some of them apparently are backups, and it's like Vrabel's got a factory working up there. So yeah, I think if the Texans beat the Steelers tonight, I'm expecting a similar type of game to whatever they play. The game that we're expecting, I'm expecting a similar type of game against the Patriots in Foxborough if they win that. If the Steelers win tonight, I'm expecting a similar game. But the road to the AFC Championship game, and this is the point that I want to get to about the Texans, that I think is uh, relevant to like just the moment and us leading up to the game. Um, First of all, I think it's going to be a bloodbath, and I'll get to that a little bit more of that in a second. But if the Texans beat the Steelers tonight, I'm expecting a similar game in Foxborough. For me, the road to the AFC Championship game, it's going to be tough, but have y'all thought about how sweet it would be to get there for the first time by winning your first 2 road playoff games? And then it comes against similarly built teams, not just the opponents, but teams similarly built to your own, with these hard-nosed, defensive-minded head coaches who, again, remind you of your own, but you're doing it against these legendary organizations. Those coaches are doing it at these legendary spots that have had way much more success than you have. Like just the thought of it, right? And I'm allowed to do this because I'm not on the team. I'm not a part of the team. Ain't nobody asking me for nothing. So I get to think about this. And even with that, I don't necessarily want to put the cart before the horse, but I guess that's what I'm doing here. They could lose tonight, and all of this would sound silly. But if they win, I like their matchup against the Patriots better than any divisional game that the Texans have ever played that I can remember. I like their chances better than any divisional game that they've played. Let's look. I mean, we can even do this. The Texans are playing their 15th playoff game in franchise history. Now, by contrast, the Steelers have played 65 playoff games in their playoff history. It's just kind of give you a little insight. You already know that the Texans are a teenager of a franchise in comparison, but just to kind of contrast the histories of these franchises, the Steelers have played 65 playoff games in their franchise history. This will be the Texans' 15th. Now, I've felt better about wild card matchups in the past. I say I felt better about the last 2 wild card matchups that the Texans have had against the uh against the Browns 2 years ago, and then against the Chargers last year. And then they've been at home for all of them, right? So this is the first one where they're doing it on the road. But again, if they win tonight, if the Texans are able to pull this off tonight, it's the best I felt about them in a division game, in a divisional round playoff game, probably since 2011 when they lost to the Ravens. That's their first division playoff game ever. And look, I think that's what a lot of people still consider to be the best Texans team ever. But given the circumstance, given the opponent, given the landscape, this is the best that I would feel about them in a divisional game since 2011. Let's see. I didn't think that they beat the Patriots in 2012, the Chiefs in 2015. They embarrassed the Texans at home in the wild card with Alex Smith. I think that was the Brian Hoyer team. So they didn't even get out of the wild card despite being at home. I didn't think that they'd beat the Patriots in the divisional game in 2016 with Fitz. There's more disappointment in 2018 in the wild card round at home against the Colts. We know about 2019. I hate to even bring it up. I hate to even relive it, but you know, that's the 24-0 deficit or 24-0 lead, if you will, for the Texans, and the comeback by the Chiefs kind of kickstarted their dynasty, if we're real about it. It's the largest comeback in their franchise history, at least I think up until that point, and it might still be. I haven't kept up with it, but fourth largest comeback at that point in postseason history, and was like, you know, maybe that's as good. Maybe the 24-0 lead was the last time you felt good about them going to an AFC Championship game, but even that felt like a little bit of fool's gold, and again, no need to relive it, but that's what it was. And then these division round games, the last 2 years against the Ravens and Chiefs, I think they were just against better teams, right? I can't remember what my predictions were or what I predicted would happen, but I say this: I hope that I didn't lie to y'all at the time. I hope not. I hope I didn't lie and say that I thought that they would win those games, because I did not. There's no chance I ever thought that. So this Texans-Steelers game should be a bloodbath. It is going to be a bloodbath. I'd be shocked, surprised if it's not. And if the Texans can win it, I feel as good about their chances of going to an AFC Championship game as I literally have in 15 years. Love what my man said earlier, though. What about them hosting? I maybe, I was rooting for both the lower seeds yesterday because I wanted them to be able to host the divisional game. And I guess I just did not go far enough in that thought, and should have. Definitely should have. But they could still technically help, because the Bills could go to the Super Bowl. They could win it all as a much lower seed, as a barely in type deal. So yeah, they absolutely could go to Denver and win that game. The Texans could absolutely win this game and beat the Patriots. Hosting an AFC Championship game, Shelton, I'm ashamed to admit that I did not think about that. I had not gotten that far in my thought process before I jumped on this live. Senior Buble says, and shout out to him, man. Senior Buble, a loyalist, man. I appreciate you, bro. He says, it will be no doubt that they went and took it if they win 2 road games. Man, I'm saying, got to win one first. Got to win this first one to start. But, whew, like the road is just such a sweet possibility. So I'm looking forward to it. I thought that John Lopez in the Loop, Sports Radio 610, they probably just got off, it looks like. But I thought he actually nailed it earlier today on In the Loop when he made the point about the quarterbacks and CJ Stroud, and that kind of being like the takeaway. If you were trying to bridge the takeaway from the previous games and apply it to what's got to happen in this game, which isn't a perfect science or anything like that, none of this is. But I think he was spot on in saying that CJ Stroud's got to have a moment here. Like he's going to have a moment, good or bad. This is his moment. What's he going to do with it? And I want to be clear. I want to be very clear about this. I think CJ Stroud is built for the moment. I've seen him perform at a high level. I've seen him perform in high pressure situations. And honestly, I think he's been overlooked and disrespected at times in terms of how he's viewed in these quarterback conversations or how he's talked about. Like the Texans in their offense and their quarterback, and it's just not that impressive. I think this is a narrative shape-shifting game for CJ Stroud. not just the narratives that we create in the media and on social media and the way just like I'm talking about the shit that happens in the games that we all actually care about, playoff games like this. The reason why we talk about Justin Herbert the kind of the reason why he's looking funny in the light because he's got all of these incredible traits and does not win any big games. Someone called him the worst big game quarterback that they've ever seen. I don't know if it was Bill Simmons or somebody, but like or maybe it was Andrew Filipponi, the Pittsburgh guy. But whoever it was, they were making a good point. Like these are not just narratives we create. These are the games that we actually care about, the games that all of us watch. It's the biggest of stages and against the most rightful opponents. So I expect the Texans defense to keep them in this game, whether the offense has it going or not. The question is going to be, will the offense do its part with Stroud as its leader? The improvements that we've seen, I think, are considerable. Like we've talked about it. They're still lousy in the red zone, still not great on third down per se, but like they're getting the ball downfield more. They're scoring more points. They've I think they found some things with their younger players, guys that were not clear contributors early in the year are clear contributors now, clear threats now. It was my guy Sam Warren at the Chronicle who was asking Nick Caley, the Texans offensive coordinator, if he's seeing anything different on how teams are defending Jaden Higgins, or are they giving him a little bit more respect than before? It's kind of hard. It's kind of a pick your poison situation if he's going to be as good as he's been, you know, and he's going to be somebody that is like if they're going to make a run, he's going to be a huge part of it. So, and all of the rookies for that matter, the ones that have been contributing, right? They're starting running back, their left tackle, um, Higgins, who I mentioned, Jalen Noel. They're hoping the safety comes back. Jalen Reed. I was starting to get my Jalen's confused, but yeah, I mean, this is a moment. Stroud, I think, is also relying on the offseason decisions to complement his well, or to complement him as well, I should say. And I've been talking about that for at least a week, that the offseason decisions are going to be huge in this game. And they are really, for me, the story of the game beyond some of the obvious stuff. But like Stroud's play caller, his offensive line, those were the big changes of the offseason. They've all stepped up recently. Got to give them credit where credit is due. They are all a huge part of why the Texans are where they are. But can they dial it up again? Road favorites against Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin, while still a lot of smart people are picking against them because they don't believe in the offense. They don't believe in the offensive line. They don't believe in the quarterback. They've never heard of the offensive coordinator. They don't think that they can score points or score enough points against a Mike Tomlin-led team in Pittsburgh on Monday night. And you hear all this shit about Mike Tomlin's Monday Night Football record. Despite the fact that everyone in Pittsburgh that I can tell is complaining about how Tomlin doesn't win playoff games anymore. You still got people that are just certain that he can do it against you. Prove them wrong. Prove them wrong. It's up to you to do it. We got somebody that's a Steelers fan in here. Love that. Love that. Let me know. And I'm not X Bless. I'm not really exactly sure how to say your handle, but let me know how you feeling about this game. Are you one of those Steelers people that? Because I've said this too, that I think that if you're coming from it from a Pittsburgh heavy Steelers perspective, you can look at the game very similarly. Feel like, man, I got a defense that can hold that offense to, or a defense that can keep me in the game, and I got a quarterback that can dial it up. One of the best to ever do it, and he showed that he could do it in their season finale against Baltimore. Or are y'all riding on that recency bias? Because I wouldn't blame you if you did. Senor Buble says he needs to see arms folded, CJ. that is the cocky, confident CJ that you love to see when he's making, because he does it after he makes a play or after they make like a touchdown, big play, explosive, arms folded CJ. Like what? Yeah, we need to see arms folded CJ out here. Senior Wuble mentions that they have been disrespectful of CJ Stroud's rankings amongst the QBs in the playoffs. I think it's been a tough thing to do, also, though. Like, I agree, but, and this is part of the whole narrative shape shifting thing. And I think I was talking about this with Ron the show Hughley, or we were texting about it. Like, a lot of the guys that have come after CJ Stroud, guys coming from drafts after him, have either passed or are like entering into the conversation that it seemed like he was going to be entering into. If not past, they're like right there with him. Like Drake May, MVP candidate and an All Pro this year, drafted after C.J. Stroud. Caleb Williams, that you can make the case that that comeback and that win against the Packers is more impressive. That's a more impressive playoff win than either of the two that the Texans had with C.J. Stroud. I think you can make that case. Bo Nix is just sitting at home chilling, drafted after C.J. Stroud, sitting at home chilling, was waiting for his opponent, and now gets to have his moment against Josh Allen. Bryce Young, who was picked ahead of C.J. Stroud, but in the same draft, just picked the spot ahead of him, number 1 overall, did not win a game, and so C.J. Stroud still has the more impressive resume when you compare those two. But if he had won that game, and he damn near did, that would have been more of an impressive win than beating the MVP, the Rams led by the MVP and Sean McVay. That would have been better than Stefanski and Joe Flacco's Browns, or the Justin Herbert led Chargers. So I think this is a moment. Allow him to reintroduce himself. Allow C.J. Stroud to reintroduce himself to the football public, who's like, yeah, let's talk about how he hadn't been the same since his rookie year. Now, the Texans have not taken that step since his rookie year, but he's still every bit the talented that he was. Stroud is over 6 on the road in away games. Mike Tomlin is 24-0 Monday night at home. The C.J. Stroud over 6 on the road in the away games, I don't know where that stat is coming from. I mean, I swear I just saw them they just went on the road and beat the Chargers. Saw them go on the road and beat the Chiefs earlier. I want to say they did it against the Colts, and that might have been a Davis Mills game, but they've won on the road. I mean, they beat that skeleton crew Baltimore team earlier in the year, so I don't know where that stat came from, but that, I'll give you this though: ain't won no road playoff games, C.J. Stroud or nobody else for the Texans. It just haven't never happened. So here is that opportunity. Let's see. Senior Buble mentions ain't none of them Steelers teams playing today. Nah, they're not. And none of them Texans teams are playing today. This is what I love about it. That's why we're here. That's why this is fun. Shape shifting. Something new happening here. Something new happened. A changing of the guard. We're seeing that with the young quarterbacks and how they performed over the weekend. Seeing that with the fact that the quarterbacks that are established and the teams that have been established as AFC powers not even being in the thing. I think it's 3 straight years for the Bengals being out of it. Like, we're going to have to start having those conversations. Joe Burrow is still considered one of the best quarterbacks in the game, but his team just don't be worth a damn. And he can't stay healthy. Not sure what you want to do with that. Lamar Jackson, not even in the playoffs. Coach got fired. They starting a whole new sort of era. Chiefs got to figure it out. Patrick Mahomes, I hear it with a torn ACL. Got to see what that's going to look like. Changing of the guard potentially here. Shelton says something that I've also been saying. The Texans are just a better version of the Steelers, built the same. Hate to say it, but it's time to get Tomlin fired. I haven't been saying that, but hey, might the Texans end Tomlin the way the Steelers ended Harbaugh? I have been on that. Like I'm not trying to get Tomlin fired per se. I am trying to beat the Steelers tonight, but I do find the whole conversation around Tomlin fascinating, and especially the Tomlin Harbaugh dynamic and how that whole thing played out. That the kickers, okay, yeah, kickers miss at the end, right? And it looked like Chris Boswell missing an extra point was going to cost the Steelers because the Ravens were in a position to hit a makeable field goal. That's the way it looked at the time. If that happens, if Tyler Luke, the rookie kicker for the Ravens, makes that kick, does exactly what happened. And I don't think they're exact same situations, right? Like you got a contentious relationship or some kind of odd relationship going on with Harbaugh, between Harbaugh, Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator, and Lamar Jackson. It wasn't exactly harmonious there at the end. I don't think you necessarily have that going on with Tomlin. So it's not a perfect comparison. But some of the conversations are being had. Like you just listen to the fans and the people that care about the team. Like, man, this guy's been around a long time. We respect him. We appreciate what he's done, but it ain't hitting for nothing no more. Got to move on from this guy. Does that happen? Or at least just what does it look like if it goes the other way? All right. And then now, fast forward to this game, to Shelton's point. Hate to say it, but it's time to get Tomlin fired. I mean, man ain't won a playoff game, what, in a decade? I think he's an amazing coach. At least it seems like I don't understand how you could be around that long and have the success that he's had if you're not, right? But is it getting stale up there? But I'm with you though, Shelton, on the whole. The Texans are just a better version of the Steelers. I've been saying that since last week. I agree. Let's see. Shelton also says that he wants to see the backups the whole second half. Bloodbath. Um, I I can't imagine seeing backups at any point in this game. I don't think either one is really built to run away. Now the Texans could, either team could get to an early lead. I don't see it. But you like think about the Texans being up 14-0 early on against the Chargers and then not looking great for the rest of the game, but just kind of mucking their way to the end there. Could be that type of game. But I don't think it's going to be nothing that's going to allow there to be backups. All right, so bloodbath, we're expecting it, and all of that good stuff. I'm not even sure if I have time or if I really want to get into this debate about Lynn Jones, Turpin. I do have thoughts on it. The reporter, and y'all don't know who that is. It's the reporter from the Jacksonville Free Press. She's an editor there. She's been there for a very long time. And she had that viral moment with Liam Cohen at the press conference. It's like it's taken a life of its own and been a really like big conversation online, and a lot to do with the fact that journalists feel the need to speak on it. And so I don't know if I want to be that guy, the journalist that feels the need to speak on it, because it's not that damn serious. It's not. I personally thought it was kind of a goofy moment. I did this earlier and said shout out to her for the positivity in the world, or for showing that everybody ain't got to be negative and that you can love on somebody publicly like that. I just in a press conference, I thought that that was like a little awkward and not a little awkward, very awkward and misplaced. I've never seen it. I've never seen it before. And I've been to, y'all know this, I go to a lot of press conferences. I've been to a lot of press conferences. Never seen it. It's just not really a thing that we do. And so I was also surprised to find out that it was somebody that had as much experience in media as this lady has, as this woman has, because I don't know if this is a thing that she does, but it just is not really a thing that happens. I've also been surprised to see some of the response that I've seen from actual legitimate journalists about this. And it was a real journalist who kind of set the whole thing off. It was Adam Schefter calling it an amazing moment that really sort of set everything off, I think. Because I'm not really sure how many people really knew about this. I'm sure it would have made the rounds, but it just wasn't. I think uh, it was Schefter who breathed life into this. And so here's my thing. Again, I don't think this has got to be the most serious thing in the world. Was honestly shocked to see the amount of support and like love for this. I was also um disappointed to see how little people really understand how press conferences work and what they're even for. And it made me honestly question and do a little bit of introspection about this. Like, here's a question to ask and think about. What is the sports press conference really for in the new media age? What's it really for? This has been the question. Like, aside from this lady, and like, we're not finna bag on this old lady and crush her or anything like that. Um, this was harmless. This was, and if anything, as a lot of people have pointed out, it was uplifting. Who knows? Liam Cohen might have needed that. You might need a air hug, so to speak, when you lose a game like that at home and you expecting to win, all of that. But it did get me to thinking, like, what is the sports press conference really for in the new media age? Like I mentioned, I go to press conferences, been to a lot of them. Probably gonna go to some this week. Gonna go to a lot this week. I'm set to go to Rockets games. We'll talk about that later in later shows. But I'm set to go to Rockets games. I'll do press conferences. But it made me think about it because in the past, and I'm right on the cusp of like having experienced and being trained in what was still fairly traditional media, but like just as a millennial journalist being part of the transition into new media. And this podcast right now is an example of it. I'm a capital J journalist who does a podcast now. Um, in addition to the actual work I do at the radio station, like this is a thing that I do. But like when I first started, it was the whole idea of a press conference, and I don't think people necessarily grasp this now because everything is available. The press conferences are run live now on team accounts. Like you don't need any access to traditional media to watch a press conference. You don't have to listen to Sports Radio 610, even though I hope you do. You don't have to watch the news or ESPN or none of that to get a press conference. You can just go find it. You can go get it. And so, like back then, the media was considered like the conduit between the sports figures, the coaches, the players, the key figures in the game, and the fans. Now that conduit is not necessary in the way that it was before. You do not need this podcast. You do not need Sports Radio 610. You do not need necessarily any one piece of media to feel informed or to be engaged or any of that stuff. They can speak right to you because of social media, because of YouTube and everything else that we have. So, what is what is the press conference really for in the media age? Because, and this is my point, like back in the day, again, the press conference was actually for media. Press conference, even though the media is the conduit between the teams and the fans, the press conferences before were not necessarily really for the fans. Like you might run them live, there might be something breaking. There were certain press conferences that would air live because there was a breaking news component to it, and there was an interest in transparency, and we wanted to bring it to you live. But by and large, the press conferences were really for the press to work and to then go and do the stories that they do, whether no matter whatever medium they were, radio, print, television, whatever. But now the press conferences, and I think this is the big change. Whereas before the press conference was for the press, now the press conference is strictly for the fan. It is strictly for the consumer. It is much more personal in that way because everybody has access to it, not just the people who have the credential. And so this deviates a little bit from our training because you're trained to go to the press conference as if you're working, as if it is somewhat serious, even if you're not taking yourself too seriously. It is supposed to be at least a serious and working environment. If y'all have ever been in a press box or know anybody that has, they'll tell you that there is a rule in press boxes about not cheering, and not just not cheering, but like making demonstrative noises and sounds. Right? Press conferences and press boxes, at least when you're working. Now, I'm not talking about the chatter before and the chatter after and in between the work, but when everything is on and on the record and everybody's recording, they're supposed to be professional working environments. That's the way that it's always been. That's the way that you're trained. And that is also how you are instructed when you go to these places. Every Texans game, they've always announced there's no cheering in the press box or loud noises, and there's no smoking and all of that. Like they kind of give you this disclaimer at every one. And so everybody knows that's in the press that there is like a particular like etiquette that goes along with it. This is probably stiff and outdated to some degree, especially considering who all we let go to these press conferences and who all is media now. The the whole objectivity thing that has been, I think, knocked down quite a bit in the way that we do media. I'm sitting up here with the Texans and Rocket stuff in my background. I got a Texans jacket on. Like we're not even pretending to be objective anymore, even if we're trying to be fair, which I still think most of us are. But it is just a different media age, and the press conference itself, I think, is reflected in that. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Again, as somebody that does these things, I feel like 80% of what we get at the press conferences is useless. At least for press purposes, it's useless. It is not interesting. It is not enlightening. It is not entertaining. It is none of the things that you would like for a piece of audio or a quote to be. Most of it is not. 80%, I would say. Now you go, and part of the thrill of the job is to find that 20%. It's to have the kind of news judgment to say, you know what, this was good. This was worthwhile. This, I think, is something that people need to know or need to hear or need to have contextualized or reframed or framed properly. That is the challenge at a press conference. That is what you're doing when you go, or should be doing when you go. Or you're going with an angle, and you're going with something that either support or speak to some color to whatever it is that you're going to go write about or do a story about. But what you don't go to do is congratulate anybody on a job well done. It's just not what you do. And I've seen a lot of people think or say that they think that this is because there's a lack of humanity and a sadness and a soullessness associated with journalists, which I don't think is an unfair criticism. As a 15-year journalist, as somebody that's done it and been around a lot of people who have done it, I think that's a fair critique. A lot of miserable folks in this business. You're not wrong, but I don't think that that is what this is about per se. This is about, I think, understanding new media and how it works, and and that's not just the media figures themselves, but like these outlets, like how we communicate. The press conference is no longer just for the press; it's for the people. Which you could argue it always was supposed to be for. We just didn't have the means to bring it to everybody in such an immediate way. But I don't know why everybody had to get so mad about it. When I first saw it, honestly, I thought it was funny. I laughed. I chuckled. I did not have. I saw a lot of the auntie. She's such a sweet, a black mother's love and all. I didn't get that. Maybe, and it's probably because those are working environments for me, right? But I didn't get. I'll say this, and I'll wrap up on the humanity point. What she said to Liam Cohen is not an uncommon or unfamiliar thing to say to a coach from a reporter. I can assure you that media people across all platforms and all walks of life do exactly what she did on a daily basis. On a daily basis, offer words of encouragement, support, friendly conversations that go beyond the whole objectivity wall that we try to put up. Like, this happens on a daily basis. I see it all the time. I even participate. I'll tell y'all a story. Just a quick, it's not even that big of a story. Like, I do this exact thing that she did. I've said similar things with far less fervor and with no auntie energy, as you might expect. But I've said similar things to Will Anderson since he's been here, Nico Collins since he's been here, Titus Howard throughout the years, Davis Mills, who is not traveling with the team. They say he's going to travel commercial. I suspect, and I don't know this, I'm not going to even pretend like I know this for a fact, but Davis Mills' wife just had a baby like a week ago. All right, so I imagine that him not flying with the team would have to have something to do with that, have to be related to that in some way. But his wife had a baby a week ago. I saw Davis right outside the locker room as I was leaving NRG Stadium the other day. This would have had to have been Thursday, maybe Thursday or Friday. And I did not know at the time that she had just had the baby. I just knew that Davis Mills was recently married and that his wife was very pregnant based off of following him on Instagram, some of the social media pictures that I had seen. And so on my way out, as I see him, and it's just me and him in the hallway, I congratulate Davis Mills on the family success, on his beautiful family, on his marriage, on his baby that I thought was on the way, didn't realize was here yet. And it was kind of in passing. He didn't even say, hey, the baby was born. He just said thank you. But I just said, yeah, man, I got 3 of my own, and I think that's really cool. I love to see that. And he's like, oh man, thank you for saying that. I really, really appreciate it. He didn't tell me the baby had been born. But that was something that I said to him off on the side that I felt like was not appropriate to necessarily say whenever he was up at the podium in a press conference or when I'm at his locker for media availability, and we're all there talking, and the cameras are on and everything. It was something that I was waiting to say when I could pull them off to the side, or if I saw them to the side. Private moment, private word of encouragement that had nothing to do with football, had nothing to do with the job, was just simply about one human being congratulating another, feeling good about another human being's happiness and success. And there was a time and there was a place. Did I not do that in a press conference because I didn't have humanity or because I'm soulless? Media can be self-righteous. Media can be self-important. I think that's the annoying part about it, and the thing that I think turns people off from media a lot of times. But this was more of an example of the of a disconnect between what the press conference is really for. I don't know. I think I've done enough rambling on that. Y'all should understand where I'm at on it. I don't think that that was something that is uh, typically done in the press conference, or it should be, but I also don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Don't think we got to have like a conniption about it, but I did feel like it was worth pointing out the disconnect and why it exists. Don't know how good of a job I did with it, but I hope y'all understood where I was coming from. Man, let's get to this game. Y'all ready for it, man? I sure as hell am. I personally, for one, cannot wait. So, Texans-Steelers, Monday Night Football, wild card. I got the Texans winning. I think the official pick that I made this pick in the Houston Chronicle. Shout out to Jonathan Alexander. I'm sorry, I cannot even read the pick. I don't have a description no more, man. So, I can't see what all the rest of y'all said, but I know that I picked the Texans to win. Like 24-13, I think was the score that I picked. Kind of arbitrary score, but that's what I'm going with. Texans 24, Steelers 13. Texans win their first road playoff game, or get their first road playoff win. Advance to the divisional round. You know. Visit the Patriots. Exercise some demons. Why not? As Senor Buble says, we are balling. We balling like a mofo out here. Hey, let's go out there with that confidence, man. Say it with your chest. I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good game. Styles make fights, right? I am intrigued by the style of this fight. B Block Podcast. B Scott. I'll let your boy.